Good evening once again, everyone. Lovely to see you all here this fine evening. I'm going to go through the usual reminders right after I say good evening to anyone watching at home and say thank you so much for joining in, whether you're live or later. Please like and share, spread this, as that ties into other announcements, which is sharing physically for people here. We have a table full of books. I've heard a number of stories of people taking books for friends and coworkers and giving them away, and that's incredibly encouraging to hear. So even if the books aren't for yourself, they're there to be spread far and wide. We also want to remind everyone again, Rooted in Wellness, June 14th, our emotional and physical health tie into our spiritual health. So it's important to know how to take care of all three. And before I do the traditional introduction that we have become accustomed to, I overheard someone asking, just as we started, and saying, every evening he says, husband to one wife and father to one child, but what child? And so tonight's introduction for Ruben will be slightly different. He is the assistant director of the stewardship department in the Portuguese Union. He is a presenter on Novo Tempo, New Time, a channel in Portugal. The two shows that he presents are The Great Controversy and Sola Scriptura. His personal ministry is called Faith and Evidence with 246,000 subs. Please check it out. Type that in right now in your search bar, Faith and Evidence. He has been an elder in his church and is currently. He is husband to one wife and father to one daughter. And we are all very blessed to have him here with us this week. Let's say a prayer, let's have our intro video, and then he'll walk up. Father, thank you for everything you've done for us. Please be in here tonight. Please speak through Ruben. Give him the words to say. As you've been with him, as he has crafted this over years, as he's researched and you've guided his thoughts for years and many presentations, please speak through him once again. Please be with each of us individually listening, whether we're here or at home. Please open our hearts. Help us to hear your words. As we know, spiritual things are spiritually discerned, and so no matter how intently we listen, we know that the heart of what's being spoken can only be heard if translated by you. And so we ask you, we open ourselves up to you. We pray in your name. Amen.
Hello, good evening. So it is funny that the pastor every night introduce myself as being having a father of one child. Now today was different, it was a daughter, okay. But a husband to one wife. And you know, every time he says this, I remember a conversation I had some years ago when I had my own company. I had a supplier in Pakistan, okay. So we used to talk a lot. He used to tell me how it was to live in Pakistan, how were their traditions. I would speak about Portugal, our traditions, and we will share our successes in our companies, how things were going. So one time I was speaking to him and saying how I managed to do a good deal. Okay, things were going very well. So he had a proposition for me. Ruben, since you have this new deal, you are earning more money, I think it's time for you to have a second wife. So every time the pastor says that, I remember that suggestion. In his culture, it was like that. So he was telling me, it's time, Ruben, to have a second wife. And no, one wife is perfect for me. Yes. So today we are going to speak about Bitcoin and the final events. This is a strange subject to speak, okay? But I'm going to tell you that this is the culmination of several things I studied that all came together for this presentation. But before we actually speak about Bitcoin, I wanted to share with you a small summary, what we have seen so far, and also something I believe it is important for us to understand. So, we have seen that in the past there were a sequence of 5 laws throughout several centuries that determined each law became more difficult to keep God's law. And we are seeing that it seems that in the future it's going to be the same. So far, we have seen 2 laws, right? We have seen the first law, that it is a law that is a Sunday rest law. And we not only saw where this law is in Revelation 13:14, we also saw which arguments are being used that will convince the world to accept this law. Do you remember the arguments still? I'm going to ask you every single day about this. So the arguments are, it's there, right? Moral and scientific. Okay, correct. We saw also that this law will not affect the Christians that keep God's commandments. But there will be a second law, then that law, it's totally different. So a second law is mandatory, as in the past, mandatory to work on Saturday. And we also saw that we need a new argument, and that new argument is a financial argument. But, I think in the second night we were here together, we were trying to identify who is the earthly power that will instate these laws. And we saw through Ezekiel 21 and also Revelation 17 that power is the United States of America. But, if I didn't know the prophecies at all, and someone came to me and said, that the United States of America will make these laws and everyone will copy, these laws will be a restriction of religious liberty. Do you know what I would think about it? It is impossible. You know why? Because United States are the front runners of what? Liberty. Freedom of religion, civil liberties. So how come this country is identified in the prophecy has been the one who's going to enact these laws? Is it hard to believe? I think to me it would be hard to believe. But who says this forgets the history of the United States of America. Do you know why? I'm going to show a picture. This is a picture of 1888. This was a general conference of a SDA church in 1888. It is a very famous general conference. I think it's the most famous one. They were fighting about some doctrine issues, like the justification by faith and some issues about the prophecy. And it was a very important point. But many times we don't understand the context that was happening in the United States in 1888. Do you know why? Because a few years before, in 1882, some states declared that it was forbidden by law to work on Sundays. So this is an actual picture of a newspaper of 1882 that says the Sunday Law. Okay, so some states did it, but let me actually open a history book to see how this worked out. New York police took to the streets and with great zeal arrested 137 people from various violations of the new law of crimes against the person and against the public decency and good morals, also known as Sunday law. So some states stated introduced Sunday laws with what grounds? What was the justification? It was what? Good, for good, morals. Does this resonate with something we have studied so far? Which are the two main arguments for the Sunday law in the future, which is one of them is what? Moral argument. It was exactly the same argument that was used 150 years ago for some states to determine the Sunday law. So is the Sunday law something new in the United States? It's not. It has happened before. So prophecy is not giving something new. It's such saying that what happened in the past is going to be repeated in the future. So to summarize what happened, this is a brief summary. In 1882, William White was arrested for working at a public house on Sunday. Did you know about this? In 1885, several Adventists were arrested in Arkansas. So not all in Seventh-day Adventists, okay? Also Jews were arrested. In 1888, the Sunday law expands more states and more Adventists are arrested. But, notice this is very important. May 21, 1888, the Senate passes the National Sunday Law. So something that began a few years before in some states, now in 1888, what happened? It was approved nationwide. The whole nation had a Sunday law. And it was in this context that the conference of 1888 happened. So, you know, being an Adventist in 1888 and knowing the prophecy, what do you think for them it was happening at that time? The final events were starting, okay? So this happened, and this episode actually gives us many lessons of what is going to happen in the future. So we are not going to lose much time with this, but you know, many times people ask me, Ruben, what do you think will be the Democrats or the Republicans that will instate these laws? You know, this is a very interesting question. I don't have an answer, but I can look what happened in the past and learn something important. Okay? So, this was the president in 1888, Stephen Grover Cleveland. So, he was the president at that time. Do you think he was Republican or Democrat? Democrat, that is correct. He was Democrat, okay? And you know that he was Democrat, but he was not the man that instated the law. So this is the law. This is the law, and the bill, the name of the bill was the Blair Sunday Rest Bill. So the guy that came up with this idea and this bill was this guy. His name was Henry Williams Blair, and he was a United States Representative Senator of New Hampshire. So do you think he was a Democrat or a Republican? Republican, wow, you are well informed. Yes, he was a Republican, okay. So, what was his idea when he proposed the Sunday law? So his idea was like this. His record on Congress, this is the New York Times speaking about him in 1879. His record in Congress, both as an advocate of radical Republican principles and of all genuine moral reforms. So let's stop here. What was his focus? Morality. And these were the grounds for the Sunday law. He was particularly interested in temperance reform, he's highly spoken of. He also recommended as an able, honest, and encouraged man, a faithful soldier in a war of rebellion, and a faithful member of the National House. So, I don't know if you noticed what happened here in 1888. We had a Democrat president and a Republican bill that passed. What does this mean? When we have a bill from one party and the government of another party, for that bill to pass, what must happen? Yes, both of parties have to agree. And I find this fascinating. You know why? Because which are the two arguments that are going to be used for the Sunday law in the future? Moral and scientific, climate change, right? Okay. Have you noticed that one argument is for the left and one argument is for the right? So what do you think will happen in the future? Both parties will agree with these laws. So it doesn't matter if the president is Republican or if the president is Democrat, it doesn't matter. This will be a law that will be agreed on both parties, like it was in the past. That's why we have these two arguments. So going back to the history of our first night, in the past we had 5 different laws that came in succession. We have seen that at least the two first laws will also happen in the future. Correct? Okay, so let's go on. What will happen in the future? Revelation 13, 16, and 17 speaks about another law. And it says, also it causes all, both small and great, both rich and poor, both free and slave, to be marked on the right hand and on the forehead, so that no one can buy or sell unless he has the mark, that is, the name of the beast or the number of his name. So, do you remember that in the past we saw that there was a law that stated that who didn't agree with the previous laws wouldn't be able to buy or sell? Well, isn't Revelation saying exactly the same thing about the future? In the future, you cannot buy, you cannot sell. So, like in the past, there will be a third law that will prevent someone of buying or selling if he doesn't agree with the previous laws. This means total control on the population. This means that the people of God have to be what? Self-sufficient. So do you remember why the first law has no consequences but is a sign? It is the last opportunity. Prepare yourselves, because this is going to happen. So now, you tell me, what does it mean not to be able to buy or sell? You can't eat. It's not preventing you from eating. It's just preventing you from buying or selling. But you cannot buy food. Yes, that is correct. You cannot go to the supermarket. That's what you mean, right? So what else? You cannot buy gasoline. Okay, more. So notice, if you cannot buy or you cannot sell, you cannot have products, but you cannot also have services. Okay? So, for example, can you go to the pharmacy? No. So, maybe it's a good idea to know some natural treatments. No, maybe it's a good idea. So if you cannot buy or sell, can you have your own? Can you have electricity from the government? Can you have water from the government? So actually, what the Bible is saying is, for a period of time in the future, in the middle of the Sunday laws, the final events, the people of God have to be self-sufficient. But you know, I know this prophecy for many years, but I always struggled with this prophecy. Can I tell you why? Look, I always struggle with this prophecy, and I'm going to give you an example. Imagine I have $10 in my pocket, okay? I have a bill here. Does the government know I have this bill in my pocket? No. If I come to someone's house, or if I met someone and I give that person that bill, and in exchange for a basket of oranges, does the government know? So, you know, in my mind, I was like, how is this possible? How can the government determine what I buy and what I sell if he doesn't know the money I have in my pocket or what I can do with that money? Is this an interesting question or not? You know why? Because our money has one simple characteristic that is very important, that money is anonymous. Okay? This is why when someone wants to do some business that it is illegal, how is that business conducted? Cash. You know, one time, when I was in my company, one time someone, I think it was a neighbor, someone I knew, came to the warehouse, and I was called downstairs because he had a proposition for me. So someone wanted to buy a computer. He was my friend, so he was saying to me, Ruben, can you please sell me the computer without invoice? I was like, what? But why? I'm in the tight budget. I don't want to pay taxes. Is that possible? And I was like, no, sorry, we only sell with invoice. And he was saying, and his last argument was, but if you sell me without invoice, I will pay you in cash. So why was he proposing this to me? What he was saying to me is, don't worry, I'll pay you in cash, and the government will not know. So this is my problem with this prophecy, at least it was for many years. Because money is anonymous. And and someone, we don't know who, 15 years ago, after economic crisis, decided to make a new kind of money that will bring freedom to people. Not to depend on the banks, not to depend on the system. And that person created a cryptocurrency called Bitcoin. Have you heard about Bitcoin? Yes? Everyone, right? Okay, what is Bitcoin? Any ideas? Okay, we have a specialist here. Cryptocurrency, yes. Eliminates the middleman, correct? It's a peer-to-peer. So you don't depend on the third party, a bank, right? Okay, this is very interesting. This is the summary of some of the characteristics of Bitcoin. So it's decentralized, so no one controls it. So it's secure. It's pseudo-anonymous. It's scarce and has a limited supply, can be divided in small fractions. It is global and allows fast transactions, has low fees, is open access, is transparent, and gives people financial independence. Okay, so let's read a very basic definition of Bitcoin. So Bitcoin is a decentralized open source cryptocurrency for peer-to-peer financial transactions without intermediaries, exactly as you were saying. It is considered the world's first decentralized digital currency constituted an alternative economic system. Financial transactions without intermediaries are verified for all network users being recorded in a type of distributed database called blockchain, okay? So basically, Bitcoin is a database, okay? Do you know what a database is, right? It is a database, but it's a different database. It's a distributed database. And that technology that moves Bitcoin, it's called blockchain. Have you heard about blockchain? Okay, not so many, okay. So what is interesting for us is to understand not what Bitcoin is, but what a blockchain is, okay? Are you ready? Okay, this is, I learned how to program when I was 10 years old. So my life was always connected with computers. I went to study computer engineering. Programming for me was like natural. It was more natural than actual language, okay, because I'm dyslexic. For me, computer language was much more easier than natural language. So, when I studied computer engineering, I studied every single type of programming language. Okay, there are several different types. But something that we always wanted to build was something very, very interesting that blockchain accomplished. Let's read. Blockchain is seen as Bitcoin's primary technological innovation, since it serves as proof of all transactions on the network. It is original designed as served as inspiration for the emergence of new cryptocurrencies and distributed databases. So what is blockchain? Blockchain is the engine behind Bitcoin. It is the database itself. I was born in 1979. And did you know that in 1979, databases already existed? This was a database in 1979. Do you remember those databases? Yes? So if you have a company, you needed to have a database like this. This was a file. This was a document. So the names we use in computers today comes from here. So imagine you go to you went to a company in the 80s, and the employee on the company had to see your, how do I say, your client's file, your records. What did he have to do? He'll ask your name, okay, Ruben. He'll go to the file to see the drawer that has an R, open the file and search for my name and pick up the file with my name, okay? This was a database, right? And if I wanted to buy something, he would write there what I have bought, and it had my balance there, everything. This was a database in a few decades ago. So I have a few questions for you, okay? Was this database safe? No, not very safe, right? Imagine an employee with bad intentions, and he went without anyone seeing and erased some lines there or added some lines. Was it hard to find out? No. So this database was easily manipulated. And if something happened, for example, a fire or I don't know, too much water, what would happen to this database? Total chaos, right? Total chaos. So this database was actually not very practical and not very safe. A seller that was in the street, how could he know what was on the client's file? He couldn't phone because cell phones were not invented yet. And he had to drive all the way to the headquarters and see the file for himself. So was this practical? No. I'm glad they invented computers, right? So when they invented computers, this is a database now. So almost all companies, even small businesses, have their database somewhere, stored somewhere in a server. Is this better or worse? What do you think? Better? What's the advantages? It's more secure, correct. More. Is it faster? Faster. Is more practical. Can now a seller in his iPad or cell phone checks the balances of the clients while he's there? Yes. Is it easier to do business like this with these databases? Yeah. And it's safer, right? But is this 100% safe? You know, one time I arrived to my company and something strange was happening. A new order would come, the payment email would come, but our balance on the payment network was not showing. Like, whoa, what's happening? So I immediately started digging and seeing what happened. And what happened was, some guy in Argentina has hacked the server and rerouted the payments to his account. So he was receiving the payments of my orders. So is this 100% safe? No, it's not. Even the guy that maintains them can actually have access to the data. Or, in the worst case scenario, if too much fire or water, these can also be lost. You know, so when I studied computer engineering, we had a dream as programmers, we had a dream. And the dream was to have a different kind of database. We, in our utopia, called it distributed database. So what was the idea of the programmers? Imagine if you could build a database that is distributed on the network. Okay? So if one of them is compromised, if there is a fire or water or someone is hacking, there would be no problem because of what? Because the correct data will be where? In all the others. So do you understand the difference between a normal database and a distributed database? So it's the same information is in several different locations. If one is compromised, there is not a problem. You know, but when I studied this, my teachers told me, this is our dream, but this is impossible to achieve. Because we cannot grant that the information is exactly the same in all the nodes, okay? There was no solution for this for many years. This is what they would like to do, but it was impossible to be done until someone invented Bitcoin. Bitcoin was the first distributed database. Okay, do you understand? So what happened was, for the first time, someone had been able to find out a way to create a database that could be distributed in several places and will have exactly the same information everywhere. And you know what? Cannot be corrupted, cannot be changed. Once the information gets there, it's impossible to change. It was a revolution for the software programmers, okay? And slowly, it will change many important databases. Okay, important databases, if they are used on the blockchain, they are much, much more powerful. So, blockchain is a type of distributed database that maintains a permanent and immutable record of transactions. So once a record is inserted on this database, it cannot be changed. Okay? The record cannot be changed. Every time a block is completed, a new one is generated. The blocks in the blockchain are linked to each other like a chain where each block contains a reference to the previous blocks. So, do you think this is an advantage? Again, a new revolution on databases? Yes or no? Yes. It's an amazing technology. You know, this technology is the one that allows something to be decentralized, secure, work with transparency, and can be auditable. It has a very low cost, is trustworthy, integrity, and it is an improvement on data management. But it also has a new feature that all databases didn't have, is that it has the potential for innovation. Okay, what is this? You can actually pre-program default actions on this database. I'm going to give you an example to make this more clear. For example, in my country, if I want to buy a car, that car is on the name of the seller, right? And I need to pay him money, and the owner of the car has to be changed for him to me. Okay, for that, we need to go to the government agency that deals with this kind of situation, and we have to sign a few papers for the ownership of the car to go from him to me, and he has to grant that the money comes to him. Do you understand this or not? Yes? Okay. So the fact is, on the government database, on that car, which name is there written? It is the name of the seller. And now I want to buy the car, the name has to be my name, okay? If the car's registration, the database was in the blockchain, it can be programmed in such a way that I agree a value, I agree I will send the money from my address to his address, and automatically the registration name changes from him to me. Okay? Doesn't need the government, doesn't need anyone. We just insert, okay, this is the amount, we both agree, I send the money, automatically the car becomes in my name. And you cannot stop it. Once I send the money, it's done. It's in my name. So is this good or not? It's good. You cannot commit fraud. You cannot sell a car that is not yours. And once the money goes, it's in your name. It cannot be reversed. So this is the kind of things that the blockchain allows someone to do. You know, when Bitcoin started, the governments were not very impressed with Bitcoin. They didn't like it. But a few years later, they started looking to the technology, and they said, okay, this is kind of interesting, this technology. So about 170 countries already decided to do something with this new technology. And that something is called, I'm going to show it to you just now. I thought I have read this one. I'm just going to read this first. Blockchain is the shared ledger where you can't just record that A happened, but you can also record the service that says, if A happens, then B must follow automatically. It's the example I was talking about on the car. So what did the government say or find out that would be interesting? Would be interested to create a CBDC. Okay, it's a strange name. Now I'm going to ask you to raise your hand. Who has heard about CBDCs? Okay, 5. Okay, not bad. I have asked this question, I had 0 answers. So CBDC. You know, CBDC, it's very easy. It's a central bank digital currency. So it's a digital or electronic form of fiat currency. I'm going to stop here. Now listen, who was here yesterday can answer to this question. What is a fiat currency? Yes? Yes. Yes, money built out of debt. It's not based in any intrinsic value. Very correct. Did you remember? Yesterday we studied this, okay? So imagine you have the fiat money, the money we have now, but instead of working normally as our money works now, it will work where? In a blockchain. This is a CBDC. Okay, interesting. So it's a fiat currency established as money through government regulation, law, or monetary authority. The current concept of this currency was directly inspired by what? By Bitcoin, okay? So we are not talking about Bitcoin anymore. We are talking about CBDCs, something the governments are interested in doing, but they got the idea where? On Bitcoin. Okay. So, my clicker is struggling here. Yeah. The main difference between CBDCs and virtual currencies is their issuance. Cryptocurrencies are typically neither issued nor controlled by a government. They are decentralized. Obviously, central bank digital currencies are centralized within the country's central bank, as the name suggests. So instead of this blockchain is decentralized, owned by no one, this is a blockchain that is controlled by whom? The central bank, okay? They can issue, they can control it, they can regulate it. And this is the map of the countries that are already implementing CBDCs, okay? Some countries are already in usage. For example, in Europe, it's already completed and will be in use very shortly. In the United States also, okay? In Canada also. So this represents over 90% of world GDP, these countries. For example, if you go to the website of the European Central Bank, there is a complete page dedicated to the digital euro. For example, the president of the European Central Bank says the following: a digital euro would give us a means of payment that is independent of non-European parties and that would also form a reliable backup in crisis situation. This is just not a technical project, it is a political statement concerning the sovereignty of Europe. So you can go to the website, there are all the details of what they want to do. So the preparation phase ended in 2023 to 2025, and now it will be regulated this year to be issued in 2029. So the issuance of a central bank digital currency, it's exactly the term that they use. So what do we have, why are we speaking about CBDCs? Isn't there already digital money? Isn't our money, can't we use already digital money in our banks? Isn't it a number there somewhere? What is the difference? Well, current money is just an electronic record of balances in private banks. A CBDC is a programmable money. It features automatic rules called smart contracts that allow the central bank to control who can hold the money and what products it can be spent on. Interesting, isn't it? It's very interesting. So this is kind of a new kind of money, but is this a good idea or not? Do you remember the characteristics of the blockchain? It cannot be what? It cannot be reversed. It's immutable. So try to imagine this with money. It is money, you cannot steal. It is money, you cannot commit crimes with it. It is money, you cannot commit fraud to anyone. It is money, it cannot be used to skip taxes, because the taxes can even be programmed and paid automatically. It is perfect money. I cannot steal, it's completely safe and immutable. Isn't this perfect money? It is perfect money, but has one thing, just one slight detail. This money is not anonymous. It's the only difference. It's not anonymous. Okay, but so what? I don't mind that my money is not anonymous, as long as it's safer. I think this is what many people think. But let's see, I'm going to show you a few experts on the matter, some that support this idea, some that don't support this idea. And please notice that these men have no clue about prophecies, okay? So for example, this is Bully. Bully is the deputy manager director of IFM, International Monetary Fund. He's a very important guy in this matter, and he's a supporter of CBDCs. Well, you know, all major organizations are supporters of the CBDCs, okay? And notice what he says. He says, CBDC can allow government agencies and private sectors players to program, to create smart contracts, to allow targeted policy functions, for example, welfare payments, school coupons, food stamps. By programming CBDCs, that money can be precisely targeted for what kind of people can hold and what kind of use this money can be established, for example, for food. He's saying, this is a good idea. We can give food stamps, and that money can only be used to buy food. If you try to buy something else, it doesn't work. Okay? He's saying, this is an excellent idea. We can give support, for example, to someone that is poor, and you can guarantee that that person is not going to buy alcohol or tobacco, but he's actually going to buy what? Food. Okay, it's a good concept. He likes this concept. Then I want to present to you this famous American economist, Eswar Shankar Prasad. I'm not going to read all his, he's a university teacher, and this is what he says. The benefit of digital money is programmability. You could have a potential darker world. He's like thinking, well, this is a good idea, but maybe this could go wrong. He's just supposing. He said a darker world where government decides that units of central bank money can be used to purchase some things, but not other things that it deems less desirable, like, say, ammunition, drugs, pornography, or something of the sort. And that is the very powerful in terms of the use of a CBDC. So imagine money that you cannot buy drugs. You cannot commit illegalities. That's what he's saying. See, this is actually a good idea. The government can control this. And then this guy, he's one of the biggest experts in money in the world. He has written many books. And it's Richard Werner. He's also a university teacher. And he has written a lot about CBDCs. And in an interview to Fortune, he said this. Pay attention. However, the further concentration of power in the hands of central banks is not the only danger posed by CBDCs. The biggest attraction for central planners is that they facilitate programmability. In other words, control over how an individual is allowed to use that currency. CBDCs are not a solution to any problem, but the latest goal in a decade-long struggle by the central planners for maximum power at the unnecessary cost of crisis, inflation, economic displacement, and unemployment. He knows that people will only accept this 100% if there is a big crisis, if there is a big thing. Have we studied this yesterday or not? Will there be a big crisis or not? Yes. So he's saying, no, this is too dangerous. It's too much power in the hands of the government. You know that there is a bank, this is the most powerful bank in the world that nobody knows. This is the International Bank of Settlements. This is actually in Switzerland, the headquarters. And this bank serves as, I'm going to read it. While a central bank acts as a regulatory agency of monetary policy at the national level, the BIS positions itself as the global coordinator forum that established the operational guidelines for these institutions. So this bank is the central bank of the central banks. It's the one that decides how the central banks works in each country. So is it important or not? Yes, it's very important. And the president of this bank is a supporter or not of the CBDCs. What do you think? A supporter, of course. A central planner, as the other calls them. And notice what he says. So this is Augustin Carstens. He's the general manager of the BIS Bank since 2017. And notice what he said in an interview. He said, "We have a problem." Remember the example I gave you, the money I have in my pockets? You know, to him, this is a huge problem. We don't know who is using a $100 bill today. And we don't know who is using a 1,000 pesos bill today. So what is his problem? The guy that is the president of the central bank of the central banks, he's saying, we have a problem. Money is anonymous. We don't know who's using the money. We cannot control those people. The key difference with the CBDC is the central bank will have absolute control on the rules and regulations that will determine the use of that expression of central bank liability. And also, we will have the technology to enforce that. I find this very interesting. You know why? Because this kind of solves the problem I had with this prophecy. Because, you know, I never understood how the government is going to be able to monitor or know the money I have in my pockets. And, you know, for them, this is also a problem. They want to know. They want to control. Does the Bible say that they will be able to control or not? Yes. Spoiler alert, I do not know if this is the technology that's going to be used. Okay? Do you understand this? It's possible, but I don't know. Maybe it's another one, even better. But the main point we spent this last minute studying is this with one reason only. The technology that allows this prophecy to be fulfilled already exists. It didn't exist 20 years ago. It didn't exist 40 years ago. But today, it does exist. It was invented 15 years ago when someone, we don't know who, created Bitcoin. And Bitcoin here is not the issue, okay? It's a technology. That technology is being used by governments around the world to create a new type of money. Money in blockchain, the perfect money. It cannot be stolen. You cannot commit a crime. You know what? If you steal, do you know what will happen? The next second, everyone knows who has the money. The government knows everything with a blockchain. So this technology, when I look to this technology and I look to the prophecy, do you know what is my conclusion? We live in a very special time in history. This was written 2,000 years ago. I never understood how come the government will prevent us to buy or sell. How come? How is this possible? But me as a programmer, seeing how blockchain works, it's amazing. it is really a revolution. But in the wrong hands, it's a terrifying revolution. The technology that will allow the third Sunday law already exists. So I don't know if you remember what I said a few days ago. I said, please pay attention. The world is ready for the final events. The world is ready. You know, it's going to happen whatever, if I'm ready or not. I really love prophecy. It's amazing. Prophecy is amazing. But you know what? Prophecy teaches me always the same thing. If God says, even if I don't understand, it will happen. And you know what? When I studied Bitcoin for the first time, I was actually studying theology at that time. I was studying prophecy at that time in my degree. When I saw the technology, blockchain technology, when I saw prophecy, I said, it's amazing the time we are living in. So I'm going to say the same thing I said in the last days. The world is ready. Am I ready? You know, but there's something I don't like when I preach about prophecy, you know. There are some people that get scared. What? I'm not going to be able to buy and sell? I'm not going to be able to have a cell phone? What about my internet? What am I going to do? No, Instagram. Well, I don't know exactly how it's going to be. I don't know. But one thing I can say, I look at the Bible and I never see reasons to be fearful. You know what God says to his people? And this is a promise. This is the last text of today. And my God will supply every need of yours according to his riches in glory in Christ Jesus. To our God and Father be glory forever and ever. Amen. Should be worried. I cannot buy. I cannot sell. What's going to happen to my life? You know, I don't know the details, but it is a detail I know. God will provide for his people. And that is enough for me. Happy are the ones that hear, that read, and that keep the words of this prophecy, Revelation 1:3. You know that God is telling us so many details on the final events, so many things that will happen, with only one purpose. He wants you by his side. You know that tomorrow we're going to see global warming and the final events. The Bible speaks about global warming. The Bible speaks exactly what's going to happen in the last years of this planet. And when the Bible speaks about difficult things, he speaks about difficult things because he doesn't want it to be a surprise for his people. He wants for his people to know exactly what's going to happen. He doesn't want for his people to say, what? I didn't know this was going to happen. No. He has given us every single detail. You know, why has God given us so many details about the future? Because he loves his people. He wants his people to trust in him. He wants his people to see, I know exactly what's going to happen. And when it happens, do you know what his people will think? God is in control. But you know, there is one thing that God may not control. It is our hearts. We have to give that to him. And we are here in this planet for one reason only. We are born, and from the day we are born until the day we finish our history here in this planet, we have only one goal: to learn how to give our heart to Jesus. That's it. We focus in so many things. We focus on our work, on our family, and that's good. Nothing against that. Sometimes we focus in bad things also. But our main focus should be to give our hearts to Jesus, to trust in Him, to allow Him to work in us. Because no one that doesn't do this will be ready to the final events. I preach this subject not because it's my favorite. It is not my favorite. My favorite subject is the sanctuary. It's a spiritual connection with God. That's my main goal. That's what I like to preach. But I preach about prophecy because of this, because God gave us prophecy to strengthen, to make our faith stronger. That's the goal of prophecy. It's not to make us fearful. You know, there is only one reason that we can be scared about prophecy. It is if we don't like God, if we don't care about God, if we want to live our lives without God. But if you care about God, if you love God, the promises in the Bible will be real in our lives. Let's finish with a prayer. Dear Father in heaven, we have been looking to this world, and each day we see more and more that this world is ready for the final events. Each day that we study, we see that the world is ready. This is a calling from you, dear Father. You are calling us also to be ready. How can we prepare for the final events? The most important preparation is to give our hearts to you, is to trust you in all situations, is to know that you will take care of us. You will provide. Help us to do our part, and above all, help us to trust in you 100%. I ask you that you may bless us today that are here, the ones also that are watching at home. Bless us with your hope, with your faith. Help us in such a way, dear Father, that we will live our lives with our eyes on Jesus. We know, dear Father, that we have to work, we have to study, we have to do our things, but let's put the priorities in the right place. Help us to put you in first place, dear Father. And that every single day, we start the day with you, for you to be with us throughout the days. Help us every day to seek power and strength from you, dear Father. And help us to be instruments in your hands to spread your love to the ones that don't know your love, dear Father. So many people in this world still don't know you. And you need instruments. You need men and women that will take your love to them. Help us to be this instrument in your hands. This is all we ask in the name of Jesus. Amen.